Hi, and thanks for watching this message video, and don't forget to go through the life lesson that goes with it. And for those who can't make a Sunday, don't forget that there's a podcast of that sermon that goes along with this message video and life lesson. Today we're continuing on in our series through the book of Hebrews, and we're covering chapter 5, where the author is talking about how Jesus fits into the priesthood. And if our author is Barnabas, who was a Levite, then it makes sense that he would be focusing on this particular aspect of Jesus because of his special relationship with God being a Levite. For instance, if you don't know of that special relationship between God and the tribe of Levi, here's what God said. Numbers 3, 5 through 13. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Call forward the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron, the priest, to serve as his assistants. They will serve Aaron and the whole community, performing their sacred duties in and around the tabernacle. They will also maintain all the furnishings of the sacred tent, serving in the tabernacle on behalf of all of the Israelites. Assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They have been given from among all the people of Israel to serve as their assistants. Appoint Aaron and his sons to carry out the duties of the priesthood. But any unauthorized person who goes too near the sanctuary must be put to death." And the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I have chosen the Levites from among the Israelites to serve as substitutes for all the firstborn sons of the people of Israel. The Levites belong to me, for all the firstborn males are mine. On the day I struck down all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians, I set apart for myself all the firstborn in Israel, both of people and of animals. They are mine. I am the Lord." Again, I feel like it's important to drive the point home that whoever the author of Hebrews is, he not only understood the Levitical priesthood and their special connection to God, he saw Jesus as the only person capable of doing what a high priest is truly called to do. And because of this understanding, the author of Hebrews grasped something in the scriptures that gave Jesus supremacy over all of the priesthood. For instance, look at what it is that he writes next. Hebrews 5, 1 through 6. Every high priest is a man chosen to represent other people in their dealings with God. He represents their gifts to God and offers sacrifices for their sins. And he is able to deal gently with ignorant and wayward people because he himself is subject to the same weaknesses. That is why he must offer sacrifices for his own sins as well as theirs. And no one can become a high priest simply because he wants such an honor. He must be called by God for this work, just as Aaron was. That is why Christ did not honor himself by assuming he could become high priest. No, he was chosen by God, who said to him, "You are my son. Today I've become your father." And in another passage, God said to him, "You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." For those who don't know who Melchizedek is, in the days of Abraham, or Abram, who was the father of all of the Israelites, and so, or the Hebrew people, so long before there was ever the tribe of Levi, this guy, Melchizedek, was apparently acting as the high priest for a priesthood that had already been established by God. For instance, here's what we're told. Genesis 14, 17 through 20. After Abram returned from his victory over Kedorlaomer and his allies, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shavah, that is the king's valley. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem, and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you." Then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had recovered. As many of you know, this offering, this gift of a tenth of all that Abram had collected to a priest, became the springboard of how tithing would be required of all of the people of Israel to show their appreciation for God for what he has done. They gave a tenth to a priest in appreciation or as an offering. But what's interesting about this whole thing, besides the tenth, the tithe, which is something that the author of Hebrews goes into in a few more chapters, he focuses in on there's a priest right then, at that time, established by God, and that somehow, some way, the author of Psalm 110 understood that when God was speaking about someone being a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, that he was speaking about, again, the Messiah, Jesus, the Son of God. Here's what we're told in the Psalms. Psalm 110, 1 through 4. The Lord said to my Lord, sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies, making them a footstool under your feet. The Lord will extend your powerful kingdom from Jerusalem. You will rule over your enemies. When you go to war, your people will serve you willingly. You are arrayed in holy garments, and your strength will be renewed each day like the morning dew. The Lord has taken an oath and will not break his vow. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. A little hint that's built into this whole story about Melchizedek is that he brought with him to Abraham the gift of bread and wine, which are the very two things that every single New Testament Christian knew and understood were symbolic of Jesus. Why? Because at the Last Supper, he literally took bread and wine and said, these two things represent me. My body broken for you, my blood shed for you. And so the author of the book of Hebrews knew this and understood, obviously, the whole scriptures. And he understood that his audience would have known all of these things too about the bread and the wine. And so he was trying to connect the dots to them about the significance of who Melchizedek is, who Jesus is, and the order of all things in terms of a priesthood. For instance, look at what it is that he went on to write next. Hebrews 5, 7 through 10. While Jesus was here on earth, he offered prayers and pleadings with a loud cry and tears to the one who could rescue him from death. And God heard his prayers because of his deep reverence for God. Even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered. In this way, God qualified him as a perfect high priest, and he became the source of eternal salvation for all those who obey him. And God designated him to be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Our author tried to remind everybody of when Jesus was in the garden that he didn't want to die. He was praying for a way out. And he knew that the audience understood this. And yet Jesus went ahead and said, Lord, Father, I'll do your will, whatever it is. And so the whole idea that the author of Hebrews was writing to the people is that Jesus, he knew that this was the plan, but yet because of the fact that there was pain and suffering ahead, he struggled with being obedient to it. But because he was obedient to it, that's what actually qualified him to be the kind of guy who can now stand in that position where he becomes a priest who works on reconciling other people to God and helping them to be obedient. This is what qualifies Jesus as being the perfect high priest, the perfect person who can lead every single one of us into a perfect relationship with the Father. And this is something that the author of Hebrews not only was trying to explain to his audience, but what's interesting is that what happens next is it's like he wanted to explain more about this and dig into this at a deeper level, but instead he doesn't. And the reason why is because he criticizes his audience. For instance, here's what he says. Hebrews 5, 11 through 14. There is much more we would like to say about this, but it is difficult to explain, especially since you are spiritually dull and don't seem to listen. You have been believers so long now that you ought to be teaching others. Instead, you need someone to teach you again the basic things about God's word. You are like babies who need milk and cannot eat solid food. For someone who lives on milk is still an infant and doesn't know how to do what is right. Solid food is for those who are mature, who through training have the skill to recognize the difference between right and wrong. Have you ever had somebody confront you and criticize you by telling you, dude, you're dumb, you're dim-witted, you're dull, you're spiritually a little bit, not so sharp? That's what the author of the book of Hebrews was saying to his audience, which implies a couple of things. One, he has a personal relationship with these guys because only a couple of kind of people can get away with that. Good dads, good coaches, good moms. People who can get in your grill and tell you when you're doing something wrong. They've earned the right to do that. He obviously had earned the right to do that with these guys, or at least he thought he had. And so we know that this is personal. Two, this challenge, this confrontation to grow up is a really important element. And it's so important that it gets done right. That's what I'm going to be talking about more on Sunday. And I hope you can join us.